Natasha Bertrand says that Biden will nominate Neera Tanden, the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress, a center-left think tank, to serve as director of the Office of Management and Budget. And that's actually from Alex Thompson of Politico, who does a very good job. Turns out that's exactly what happened. We got the news today, right before I came on air. Neera Tanden has been picked for this position. This position is actually, pretty important. It's a Senate-approved position, so that'll be interesting to see what they have to say about her in the Senate. But she would help craft the budget. Now, I know who my audience is. I know you guys are probably, almost all of you, familiar with Neera Tanden and just how much of a nightmare this is. But for those of you who aren't, let me give you a little bit of a refresher here. After one CAP official, Center for American Progress, Faz Shakir, who was also Bernie's campaign manager, by the way, noted how perverse it is to first bomb a poor country and then make it turn over its revenues to you for doing so. And then Tanden argued that this made a great deal of sense. Here's an email released by WikiLeaks. Faz Shakir is responding to Neera Tanden. The subject of the email is, "Should Libya pay us back?" Faz says, "I don't think it's fair that we create our own domestic problems and then ask other nations to pay for it. You see the adverse incentive problem here, right? If we think we can make money off of an incursion, we'll do it. That's a serious policy messaging moral problem for our foreign policy, I think." Neera responds, "We have a giant deficit. They have a lot of oil. Most Americans would choose not to engage in the world because of the deficit. If we want to continue to engage in the world, gestures like having oil-rich countries partially pay us back doesn't seem crazy to me." That's Neera Tanden saying, do we illegally invade countries? Yeah, of course we do. When we illegally invade those countries, should we then steal their oil to pay us back and pay down our deficit? She's cool with illegally invading countries, stealing their oil, and using that to reduce the deficit, which, by the way, also shows she's a deficit hawk, which is literally the last thing you want at a time like right now, because you need deficit spending at a time like now, because we're effectively in a new Great Depression. And as we learn from history, to dig yourself out of a depression, you need public spending. Just like the New Deal, for example, and then World War II also, by the way. That helped get us out of the Great Depression. Got the economy fired up again. When there's not much happening in the private sector, the public sector has to pick up the slack. This is what we learned. Keynesianism 101. She's taking a right-wing view here without even realizing it. The right-wing view of paying down the deficit is like a priority or something, right? But then also totally cool with illegally invading countries and stealing their stuff, invading sovereign nations, stealing their natural resources. This is a Republican view. This is a Trump view. Trump has said himself, we need to steal the oil. We should have stolen the oil. He was talking about Iraq specifically. She's talking about Libya here. But this says a lot about Neera Tanden. This one story says a lot about Neera Tanden. By the way, there are a million of them. There's another one where Zed Jelani, who used to work for Center for American Progress, used to work for Think Progress, he says, because Neera Tanden was one of his bosses, he says he reported critically on Mike Bloomberg. And then Neera Tanden scolded him and said, don't do that because we're trying to get money from him for Think Progress. So she was soliciting a billionaire for a donation and telling her workers, hey, I don't want to hear any criticism of him. Don't run stories that are critical of him. Don't run stories of a billionaire oligarch mayor that are critical. Because I want money for our organization. Like, she doesn't even have the intelligence to sort of take the rough edges off of it. It's just like she may as well have called Zed into the office and said, hey, Zed, I'm corrupt. We are very corrupt. We need to continue the corruption. Please don't get in the way. She also, by the way, censored people at Think Progress from reporting critically on Israel. She, famously had an interview with Netanyahu and sat down and got chummy with him, but she would get mad anytime people at Think Progress would report critically on Israel. And I should also note that, guys, this is why do you think she so fiercely opposed Bernie in the primary? Is because she is a career Democratic insider, totally talentless, and she knows that if Bernie were to get in power, her career is done. There's no way she'd get a job inside of Bernie Sanders' administration. There's no way she'd get a job if you had somebody who's a principled social democrat in office, because she's a neoliberal corporatist and an interventionist, and the philosophies don't line up. So she knows if he gets elected, my career's over. And so she opposed him so fiercely, as fierce as anybody. And now she got her way. Joe Biden won. And now, look at that. She's getting paid off for being a Democratic establishment hack for so long. Well, she's getting paid off for it. There's a million stories we could talk about with Neera Tanden. I could go on all day. She's in favor of Social Security cuts. So she's a deficit hawk, and she's in favor of cuts to Social Security. She also outed a sexual harassment victim at Think Progress, although to be fair, I don't know if she did that on purpose or if it was just an accident. There was a story where she punched Faz Shakir. Again, he also was there at Think Progress. She punched him. Why? Because Faz interviewed Hillary Clinton, and he had the nerve to ask Hillary Clinton about her support of the Iraq War. I think Neera was mad about that question because I guess she had told Hillary, hey, come do an interview with us. And she probably made it seem like it's going to be patty cakes and puppies and rainbows and we're not going to ask any hard questions. And so Faz asked a hard question. And then she punched Faz in the chest because she was mad that Faz asked a real question. Again, I could go on and on with Neera all day. She is the epitome. She's the quintessential. She's the archetype of the corporate Democrat. And now she's getting paid off. So anyway, how's that pushing Biden left thing going? At least 8 cabinet picks have been made by this point. You know how many of them were Bernie Sanders supporters or are left approved? 0. 0 for 8. 0 for 8. So how's the pushing left going? Guys, listen, when I make arguments on this show, I don't do it for the hell of it. I do it because I really believe the things I'm saying. And one of the cases you heard me make endlessly is that don't give me a plate full of shit and say it's a fudge brownie. It's not a fudge brownie. It's a plate of shit. And what I was seeing from many people on the left is, we're going to get Biden elected, and then on day one, we're going to push him left. Gosh golly. And it's like, no, you're bullshitting. You're delusional. The argument you had to make, which would have been an honest argument at least, is, yeah, I'm going to vote for Biden. But I'm going to vote for Biden knowing he's going to suck, knowing he's going to be a neoliberal corporatist. But you know what? I prefer neoliberal corporatism to neoconservative authoritarianism and trickle-down economics. If you made that argument, okay. That's an honest argument. That's a fair argument. It's acknowledging he's going to be abysmal and there's no changing him. But no, what I saw from lefties was, we're going to change him and push him left. No, you're not. No, you're not. Stop lying to yourself. Stop being delusional. If you're going to make a case, make it on its merits. Be truthful. But they weren't. They weren't truthful. They lied to themselves. They lied to everybody else. And now we're casually watching Neera Tanden get picked for important positions. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about us. Ain't going to be no reaching out to the left. As I said, it's all placating and it's all symbolic whenever he reaches out to the left at all. That the Unity Commission, let's sit around with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other lefties and say to them, that's a very good idea. Now let's water it down and then we'll make a list and these are things that we'll consider. Well, congratulations. You know what he's going to do? He's going to take one look at them and say, I have considered them and I'm against them. Thank you very much. It was literally just a pat on the head. That's it. Just placating you. Let me make you feel like you're part of some serious process. Let's sit in a conference room and talk these things out. He's going to ignore you. The left will never win until they begin to understand how power functions. And right now, they're fundamentally naive to how power functions. And it's kind of embarrassing. Even Bernie. Bernie's about 312 years old, and he's been in politics since 1792. And he didn't understand that you had to get concessions up front from Biden before you dropped out to campaign for him. You didn't understand that it's a tit for tat. You say to him, I will campaign for you. I will get my 30% block of the party to vote for you. But here are my demands. One of those things is labor secretary, because he wants to be labor secretary. And Biden's signaling, I'm not going to give you labor secretary. You didn't understand you had to get the concessions up front? That you don't, casually assume that a corporate snake is going to work with you on what you want? You didn't get that? Or did you get that and you didn't care? That I don't even want to entertain when it comes to Bernie, because I trust that he means well. But, it's sad, man. It's really sad to watch. It's so sad. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. We had Bill Clinton 1.0, Bill Clinton 2.0, which was Barack Obama, and now Bill Clinton 3.0. At a time where we desperately need a new FDR, this is what we got. We have Neera Tanden making decisions in between starting Twitter fights with people that have, Twitter pictures of Gritty. I stole that joke from one of the Chapo guys. Felix made that joke. Anyway, she'll be fighting with somebody on Twitter who has the Twitter picture of Gritty, and then she'll immediately pivot towards cutting Social Security and making grandma go hungry. We live in a world that is sheer hell.